Guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And as always, we've got a packed show. The transfer window is heading towards its conclusion and there is still plenty of business to be done, particularly for Chelsea. So we're going to be bringing you the latest on the pursuit of Wesley Fofana, the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang deal, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Anthony Gordon. And if anything else pops up whilst we're streaming, then we'll get amongst that as well. But yeah, guys, big up everyone in the chat as well. Guys, please do get involved. We enjoy your interacting with you. So yeah, get involved in the chat, guys, and let us know your thoughts as well. But George, pleasure as always to be joined by you, mate. Let's get stuck into it. And the pursuit of Anthony Gordon, the Everton winger, as it were. Chelsea yesterday having, well, I say yesterday. We don't know when this bid went in. Could have been probably Sunday, Monday. I'm just going to bring it up now. This one here, David Ornstein, who's on GOAT tier of journalists with Fabrizio. Basically, Anthony Gordon has told Everton and Frank Lampard he wants to join Chelsea. The 21-year-old's keen to play Champions League football and boost his World Cup chances. Everton are made aware that Chelsea are ready to pay 50 million plus the 10 million add-ons, but nothing's agreed. They still want to keep him and need a replacement if he goes. This is obviously Chelsea's third bid, I think now. I think the initial one after the Spurs game come out was like a 40 million pounds or something, and then the other one was 45 odd million. Chelsea prepared to pay this much money, which for Anthony Gordon is a phenomenal amount of money. I think it's important before we get into it to realise that this is not the kid's fault. Like, you know, he's not asking for Chelsea to pay 60 million for him. You know, it's unfortunate. This is kind of how football works. Everton value him at that sort of price range or whatever. They feel he's going to be worth a lot of money. It could be worth more than that money in, say, 6 months' time. So I think it's important to realise that it's not his fault that he's costing this much money. And if he does arrive, which it looks like he probably will, then obviously we will fully back him. But for me, I just can't really understand this one. You know, I really can't. I mean, obviously, you know, you can't be selective with your backing of the manager. You can't be like, oh, back the manager. But then when he wants to sign someone that you're not that keen on, you then stop backing the manager. I think I'll back the manager, but it's important. You can also criticise players that are potentially going for. I just don't really see where Anthony Gordon fits in at Chelsea. You know, I don't see where he improves Chelsea in terms of like, all right, does he improve the squad? I don't really know. When I know him and Callum Hudson-Odoi are slightly different. They're obviously both wide players. Callum probably more of an out and out winger. You know, hugs the touchlines, etc. Gordon a bit more of a road runner as such, someone that, you know, carries the ball quite a lot. But again, relatively unproven. It doesn't make sense. If you've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, who is leaving the club because he can't get any minutes, to then bring someone in like Anthony Gordon of a similar age and a similar profile to pay 60 million pounds for that potentially, I just don't really understand it. I mean, George, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, because for me, we're getting to the point in the window now where we need players to improve the first 11, not just the squad. And for me, Gordon doesn't improve the first 11. That's where I'm seeing. I mean, what are your thoughts on the pursuit for Gordon?
For me, it just screams desperation from Chelsea Football Club. I honestly don't. I can't see anything that's a positive from this deal. 60 million pounds for Gordon it's laughable, mate. I think it is the most shocking story of the window so far. Just the fact that Chelsea, to spend that amount of money, willing to pay that amount of money for a player that goes completely against what we're trying to do, in the sense of bringing in a goal scorer, a proven goal scorer, to solve that issue of scoring goals. I don't see how he does that. Like you said, I don't see how he improves the team straight from the off. Okay, if he's being brought in as a squad player, are we really going to pay 60 million pounds for a squad player? Look, again, I agree. I know he doesn't set the price, but come on, Chelsea got to be sensible here. I really think this is the reason why we're going for this is because we haven't got any other options that we can do in time. Because I honestly do not understand, unless Tuchel and the scouting staff see something in him and have done a lot of analysis, which I'm sure they have, and have looked at him. You know, I don't even buy the argument that he's for the future. We don't need someone for the future. We don't need potential. We've tried that. We've tried that avenue with Havertz and Werner, spending way over the odds on players that are young and, you know, can integrate in the side for the years to come. We need something right now, and he is not the answer. I'm worried because I think that he will end up joining Chelsea after the comments that have come out. I think Frank Lampard's obviously already had his press conference after the cup match yesterday and was quite adamant that he wasn't going to discuss it, but it's fairly obvious in his expressions that they've had a conversation, that, you know, what's been said is true. And when a player demands the exit door, then really the only option is leave him out the squad, which Everton can't afford to do, or they take the money and reinvest. I mean, the Everton fans ringing up TalkSport yesterday that I listened into, they're laughing their heads off. They'll drive him there themselves. They can't believe it, that Chelsea are willing to pay that amount of money for him, regardless if he's a homegrown player or not. So I just think this is lunacy to a new degree from Chelsea.
Where do you think Thomas Tuchel sees him fitting in? Because by all accounts, you know, Tuchel is a keen admirer of him. He obviously, Bowley's not going to have known anything about Anthony Gordon, so it's obviously Tuchel would have very much, along with the scouting department and whatnot, tracked this player. They must have tracked him for a number of years. I don't think it's someone that they would have just suddenly plucked out the air. They've obviously been tracking the progress. Spurs have had an interest previously in the window. I don't think they're prepared to go above £35 million. Before I get into this tweet from TalkSport last night, mate, where do you think he possibly fits in? Because I mean, for me, I can't really see him getting too many starts in the front in the front line. As poor as the front line's been, he's not going to be a regular starter in that front three. And then the other thing is he's probably going to fill in at right wing back when Reece James needs a bit of a breather, or we want to go a bit more attacking or whatnot. So he's very much going to play like possibly in the front three, but also do a bit of a shift at right wing back as well. As you say, it's an awful lot of money to spend on someone that is still quite unproven. It's a big gamble.
He's not quite unproven. He is unproven. There's no getting around it. He's
got 50 Premier League games. It's not a lot.
Yeah, well, come on. Yeah, for a side that basically have no other options, so they play him. He's a homegrown player. I get it, and you know, we've seen it before with players like Wayne Rooney, who came onto the scene, and Everton, you know, didn't want to get rid of him, but took the money, and you know, look what happened there. So I'm not saying that he doesn't have potential to be a great player, but it just frustrates me, the fact that there's so many players that we were linked with that have got away from us. Lewandowski, you know, Gabriel Jesus, potentially. Aubameyang still not confirmed. Ronaldo, apparently we weren't interested, even though he was offered. I don't know how you can turn down, you know, forget the age, how you can turn down one of the greatest players of all time who scores goals for someone like Anthony Gordon. Maybe it's a stroke of genius from Chelsea that we just, as fans, we have no idea of, because you look at Manchester United's transfer policy and they just, you know, their scattergun approach of bringing in another ageing midfielder in Casemiro, who, okay, is a good ready-to-go player, but does he solve it 2 years down the line? Probably not. So that's probably why we didn't go with someone like a Ronaldo, which maybe is a stroke of genius from Tuchel's part. Look, I back the manager's decisions, but for this one,
Mate, for you,
I don't see how it makes it any stronger. I just don't.
Mate, for you, is it Anthony Gordon just as a player himself, or is it the money, or a combination of both? Like, say this deal was like, you know, 25, 30 million pounds, would you be more on board with it, or is it just Gordon in general?
Well, obviously the money plays a factor, because I think when you're spending that amount of money, you think, well, where else could that be invested more wisely in a player that's, you know, more established, more experienced. But for me, mate, Gordon's never been on my radar. I mean, again, you know, I'm not
about him.
And no, I'm not a Premier League expert. We haven't seen a lot of him. You know, obviously he's fairly young. He's played 50 Premier League games, but burst onto the scene only really last season, where he had a good season. Well, if you can call it a good season, I mean, they survived by the skin of their teeth. Obviously, the Everton fans, from what I've heard, adore him. You know, he was the shining light that really kept the spirits high. Not Frank Lampard. It was him that kind of, you know, they hung their hat on to kind of get them out of trouble. But you know, when you're taking that step up, I mean, we've seen it in Gallagher. Look at him. You know, Premier League, you know, proven goal. You know, scores a lot of goals from midfield. Played a whole season at Crystal Palace. Started for them. Comes to Chelsea. Okay, he had one game, but you can see the level that is required to be at Chelsea. And for me, Gordon was never, ever on my list, and never would be until, you know, you have to give it at least another couple of years. But we're talking football's gone mad, mate. I mean, £60 million.
I mean, to be fair, it might not reach that. And look, we don't know what the add-ons are. We don't know what the structure of the deal is. It could very much be, because the structure of the deal is important as well. I'm not saying it's not a ridiculous amount of money, but because it is. But if it's a £50 million fee, all 50 million of that is not going to be paid up front. It could be 25 million up front with the rest paid in installments over a number of years, which, okay, is still not ideal, but 25 million up front is a lot better than 50 million up front. So I think it's important that yes, the 50 plus, yes, the 60 million pounds is like the headline grabbing figure, but it's quite misleading that. And I think people need to realize that on transfer deals, that the figure gets reported in the media is slightly, it's slightly misleading. So look, it could still reach 60 million pounds, but the fact of the matter is we might not pay that full 60 million for say 5 years. So
but
it's still
money is important, because people say, well, it's not our money, but it is the club's money, and the way the club spend the money does have an outcome on what we achieve. I mean, you only have to look at Manchester United, that Gary Neville's saying they could finish bottom half with over £1 billion spent in transfer windows in the last decade. I mean, so you can say, well, it's not our money, who cares about the money? But to a degree, as fans, we do, because you think, if you're in an office in a board meeting with these players and you're these backroom staff, do you honestly have, right, Chelsea need a goal scorer, we need to improve the team? Do you honestly have Gordon on your whiteboard? I don't think so. I really don't.
No, maybe not. I mean, it's fair from Lee that all transfers are a gamble. Yeah, that is a fair point. There's no guarantees. Yes, you can have closer guarantees to others, but there's no guarantees that any signings are going to work out. I mean, George, would you be, for this Gordon deal, if it brought the price down a little bit, would you be prepared to give them Brozier or Gallagher? I'd be slightly against giving them Brozier just on loan, only because we haven't really got that many forward options. If it was going to be one of the two, I'd probably give them Gallagher on loan, just because we're a bit more stocked in the midfield. But again, with how injury prone Kovacic and Kante are, to give away an option in midfield when we're very light there anyway, it looks like no one's coming in, that could also be a little bit problematic. I mean, Everton are very keen on Brozier. They need forward players. And if Gordon goes, I'll be even in more desperate need of forward players, having lost Richarlison. They haven't replaced him. Calvert-Lewin's always injured. They got Solomon Rondon, who's pathetic. And, I mean, Brozier as part of the deal, does that make sense?
It probably does for Everton. I mean, they're not going to get rid of him without either reinvesting the whole money.
They need a replacement.
And it's all profit for them. I mean, he's a homegrown player. They didn't buy him, so they can use that money, straight off the bat for someone else. But because there's not a lot of time, and because Everton might have that struggle with pulling power to reinvest that money, they'll obviously want something in return. And I think I'd be more reluctant to give away Brozier, as you said, because that just leaves us lighter again. I'd probably give Gallagher at this stage. But again,
we're also light in midfield, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. Which, an ideal situation is that we leave this Gordon deal alone. I hope we don't get him, in all honesty, as a fan. But if we do, I don't want another player going the other way, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a fair point from Bry Guy here, saying that Chelsea are going to have to overpay this late in the window because it's leaving teams late to find replacements.
Yeah.
And we're also not performing that well, which puts them in a weaker bargaining position. I'm not sure about that, but the first part, 100%. I mean, George, there's always a problem when you leave business this late in the window. You're going to have to overpay slightly because the other team are going to have such little time to get replacements in. I mean, are you surprised at how late we've left the business? I know we've bought in Koulibaly, Sterling, Cucurella, and some good youngsters, but mate, can you believe that on August 24th, that we still haven't replaced the two centre-backs we knew we were losing on a free transfer well before the end of last season? We've not replaced them. I mean, if someone had told me that at the start of the window, I'd have laughed. But here we are, August 24th, with about 6-7 days of the window left, and we haven't even replaced the players we lost last season.
Yeah, and I actually agree with the entire statement that was just made there, because I think, it's almost like a game of chess. Once you expose your moves to the other teams, particularly when you've had a few games of the season, and people are it's so obvious that Chelsea are desperate for a striker. No one's going to want to do business with Chelsea about giving, a piece for them to improve, certainly from the Premier League. So, Everton have got the complete upper hand here, where not only it's a homegrown player and they want to celebrate that and reinvest that, but, they also haven't got a striker, and they don't want to improve Chelsea's striking opportunities. So they know that they can charge whatever they want. And similar to the other Premier League players that we've tried to tout, it's not easy because it's so obvious that Chelsea are desperate for a striker. It's public knowledge. I think the only reason it's taken slightly longer is perhaps that Chelsea have wanted to get it right, which isn't easy. That's probably the hardest position to get right at the top end of the field because, how many people in the Premier League score double digits? Very few that are consistent, that are available. I mean, that even narrows down the list even further. So you are taking a slight gamble, and it does take time. But my biggest frustration is just the amount of names we've been linked with, and we haven't pushed through. And now it's got to desperation where it's going for players like Gordon for an astronomical fee, and it just, for me,
I mean, for that money though, like if you're spending that much money on a player, you'd expect them to have a pretty big role in the first team setup. But I just don't see where he fits in starting wise. I mean, people in the chat are saying, like, oh, maybe we're going to play at right wing back and Reece is going to stay at right centre back. I mean, Reece James should not be playing right centre back. In one-off games like against Tottenham to combat Heung-min Son, yeah, fair enough. But with this three at the back, the wing backs are our most important attacking outlets. And Reece James gives us so much creativity down that right side, as Cucurella and Chilwell do down the left. So to limit that and put Gordon there, for example, but to spend sort of £60 million potentially on could be a backup wing back and someone that's going to be a sub, it's a lot of money. It really is. But I just, as you said, I don't really see where he plays. I mean, he's obviously going to play backup at right wing back, and he'll get a few goes in the forward line. But I mean, I just don't really get it. And I understand, that transfer deals take a while. Look, it's easy to say we should have got our business done. We were starting this window on the back foot with the sanctions, new owners coming in. We've got no director of football in place. Bodie hasn't really got any experience in dealing with football business. Obviously very experienced in sporting business, baseball, etc. But that's totally different to how football transfer market works. And I think Chelsea maybe are slightly not being taken for mugs, but teams have kind of taken advantage of the fact that we haven't got a director of football. We've got someone that doesn't really know how the football transfer market works. Obviously learning quickly, he's traveling around making a lot of connections and whatnot. But I feel teams may be taking a little bit of advantage of us. But I mean, yeah, the Gordon one, we could chat about it all day. But I mean, George, do you think Gordon coming in would lead to a change of formation or not? I personally think all the signings we're making, like particularly the centre-back signings and defensive signings, are still leading to predominantly going to be a back five this season.
I can't see Chelsea changing for a back five this season. But you're right. I'd expect Gordon, if he did come in, to be a starter. I mean, whether that's...
I just can't see where.
Well, possibly up front instead of Havertz. I really don't know at this point.
What, and play Sterling down the middle?
No, you could play Sterling on the left and then play Gordon up front.
Fuck yeah.
I mean... But this is what I mean. I mean, I don't know where Gordon fits and where he adds quality. If he plays right wing back or in the forward line, it's not better than what we've got. But then you could argue, well, we've got Havertz who's doing nothing. So what other option is there apart from bringing in someone else who could perhaps do something different? I don't know at this point. But
I don't know either. But George, does it make it even stranger that we've got Callum Hudson-Odoi on our books, who could still be a very, very good player, who is leaving, which we'll come on to that shortly, who is leaving because he can't get the minutes he needs, yet we're going to spend potentially 60 million on Anthony Gordon. How is he going to get any minutes? Like, how is he going to get minutes that Callum Hudson-Odoi couldn't get?
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It really is bizarre. And given the fact we're desperate for a midfield player, we're fucking about with not offering sort of an extra 5 to 10 million for Fofana, and we're not prepared to go beyond a certain point for Aubameyang. Instead of this 60 million, take 20 odd million off it, put an extra 10 to get Fofana done, and try and use some of that money to maybe get a midfield player in as well. It's a lot of money to spend at this stage of the window on a position that is not a priority in the squad. It just isn't. Yes, we'd like a couple of attackers in, but it looks like it will be Aubameyang. But it's not a priority position. So why spend this much money when we desperately need a midfield player? By the way, I don't think we're going to get a midfield player in. But it just doesn't make sense to be spending this much money on an area of the squad that isn't really a priority. It would very much be a luxury at this point.
Well, that's the biggest concern. I think for what you just said there, I think most Chelsea fans, if not all, would agree. And that seems like the logical conclusion. But we're not making the decisions. And I struggle to think, from this story and from what's being said, I don't think anyone else is saying that, which is which is alarming. I don't understand why we're allowing someone who I think Tuchel quite liked for a short period. He had a little purple patch where he was playing regularly. Okay, be it injuries or whatever, but he was playing. Then got an injury himself, and I think Hudson-Odoi can do a great job at either right wing back or in the forward line. Still,
I just don't think he wants to play it. He just doesn't want to play at right wing back, which I think is totally fair enough.
Fair. But then, why can't we try him in the forward line then if the forward line's so poor?
I mean, that's one of my. To be fair, mate, that's one of my major criticisms of Tuchel at the moment is that we've got these attacking players, right? Fair enough, Pulisic, Ziyech, etc. Whatever you think of them, but the fact that Havertz, Mount, Sterling, etc. I mean, maybe Sterling not to a lesser degree, but Mount and particularly Kai Havertz have been. Mount's been shit for two out of 3 games this season. Terrible, if we're being honest. Everton and Leeds, awful. Havertz has been awful for ages. Sterling, okay, is a new signing, but again, form's not been great. You can allow that. But what sort of message does it send to the likes of Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech, Pulisic, that despite how terrible our front line is, they still can't get any minutes? It's mad. That's one of the things that I'm really critical of Tuchel of, is the fact that this front line is not working. Something's not working. We've got different options, yet he refuses to use those options. For me, that's what I don't understand.
Yeah, well, mate, I'm totally with you. I don't.
See, it almost seems like there's favourites, or there's a certain stubbornness that he's got, that he's unprepared to give anyone else an opportunity. Like, it must be so disheartening as a player at Chelsea, particularly an attacker, to see how poor our attackers are week in, week out, the ones that have been starting, and yet you still can't get any minutes.
I think from a fan's perspective, it's easy to say when something's not working, change it. But you're right. I think some coaches are very stubborn in the way they want to play, and are convinced by their philosophy that it will come good at some point. And what kind of message are you sending in terms of doing your job if it becomes very apparent that you are chopping and changing because it's not working? It looks panicked. It looks. I mean, I constantly use Manchester United as an example, but look how many times they change their starting 11. It's pretty much every game is different. So to the fans and to the people watching, it looks like Ten Hag hasn't got a clue what he's doing. He's just trying, and obviously he's still trialing different things. But we also don't see what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know how good these players perform in training. We don't know what the personal circumstances are. I mean, maybe Hudson-Odoi is just refusing to be a team player and play where the manager's asking him to, which is right wing back. And if he's not doing that, then what kind of team player is he? And can you really start him in a game when he's refusing to do tasks for the manager? Loads of different things, but from the face of it, I agree. It's not working. So why doesn't he use the options that? Well, you can't. What else can we do if it's not working? Why don't we change it? But it's
otherwise,
easy.
What's the point of having a squad?
It's easy on the surface
you're not
to
going
say
to use
that.
them.
Yeah, it's easy on the surface to say that, but we went through this last week. A couple of days ago, didn't we? About Pulisic and Ziyech are options, but they want to go, so we can't use them.
Yeah, but still, but look how badly what we're using at the moment's doing. Like, I just don't understand.
I don't get the Broja one. I think Broja should.
I think Broja's been injured, but I mean, I just don't get it. I'm not sure, but anyway, but back to Callum Hudson-Odoi, mate. Looks like he's closing in on a loan move to Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. Mm-hmm. Fabrizio saying that the deal's progressing well, could be completed this week. Another report from Germany suggesting they're just sorting out the final details, potentially with an option to buy being involved as well. And that report from Germany saying that apparently Callum's got no future under Tuchel, which I'm not sure if that's true or not. It could be true, might not be. He's understood to have turned down proposals from the Premier League, and as many as 20 clubs were interested in trying to secure his services. I think that speaks volumes for how talented he is. Georgia moved to Leverkusen, a new league. We've seen young British players do very well in the Bundesliga. The likes of Jadon Sancho's gone over there. A lot of players have had loan moves or played in Germany at a young age, England internationals, a chance to play regular first-team football and Champions League football as well, which Leverkusen have got. And I think for Hudson-Odoi, it's just a chance to get out of the bubble, experience something new, perhaps be slightly just more out of the limelight, as it were. This kind of ticks a lot of boxes for me. I mean, what are your thoughts on this move to Leverkusen?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a great move. I mean, obviously, I'd like him to stay and be a first-team player for Chelsea, obviously, but I think it is good for him to kind of sometimes you need to push the reset button and have a fresh eyes on a new project, and I think he needs that. Maybe he is surplus requirements under Tuchel, but with Chelsea managers, you never know when he finishes his loan if Tuchel's still going to be there. So that doesn't mean that it's the end of his Chelsea career. And I do think it's good for him. All the players, the English players that go abroad, and not many do, but players that do always say it broadens their mind and they become better, all-rounded individuals. Learn, a different way of playing, and you only have to look at maybe Eric Dyer, who was in Italy to start with, who did very well. So I think it's a smart move from Chelsea to just loan him out, give him minutes. Hopefully, he becomes first team established in Leverkusen, which I'm sure he will. And hopefully we can return to Chelsea a more educated and better player, and smarter player.
Yeah, no, I hope so as well, mate. So we're playing with some exciting young players there, the likes of Florian Wirtz, Moussa Diaby, Patrick Schick, the centre forward, who's banged a lot of goals for Leverkusen. There's a lot of exciting potential there for Callum, and I really hope he does well, because I still think there's a phenomenally talented player there. He's been really plagued by injuries at a young age, which is unfortunate for him, not his fault. And it's odd for me, because when Tuchel first come in, he really liked Callum. Like, he really liked him. He was playing him. He was playing him a lot. And then he got that run at the sort of at the beginning of last season where there were injuries, where he played 8 or 9 games on the spin, and he put in some really good performances. I'm not really sure what's happened from there. Obviously, injuries haven't helped him. He was hooked in that game at Southampton. He came off the bench and then he played about 20 minutes and then was re-subbed, which I think is kind of like the ultimate humiliation as a footballer. And it just hasn't really worked out for him. But I don't think it's the end of Hudson-Odoi's Chelsea career. He get his head down, go out on loan, play week in, week out, play Champions League football, and kind of see what happens from there. But I don't think it's the end. And I'm glad that Chelsea aren't selling him permanently. And if it is an option to buy, we need to make sure that it is for decent money, because I do think that we can get good money for Callum if we end up selling him. But I think we shouldn't be sleeping on him. And I think it's one that, we should come revisit next summer and try and integrate him into the squad potentially, because he still is a very talented boy. But moving away from the attackers then, George, let's move on to the defence now. And the pursuit of Wesley Fofana continues. Chelsea have had a third bid rejected yesterday of £70 million, I think, which has included the add-ons. Fabrizio Romano saying that it's not over yet for Fofana to Chelsea. He's pushing to join Chelsea. It's his dream and obsession. So negotiations are expected to continue after £70 million bid turned down. Talks are still ongoing with intermediaries in order to find the best solution. And then to go on from there, I'm just going to bring up another thing on the screen now. We've had Brendan Rodgers speaking after the Carabao Cup second round tie last night, saying that the player clearly wants to go and it's about the club's finding an agreement. And I think once that happens, it will be resolved then. So Fofana obviously left out of the squad for the Southampton game at the weekend in the Premier League. He then wasn't in the squad at all for the Carabao Cup game last night. And apparently he'd missed a few training sessions. So he was training with a development squad. Make of that what you will. I mean, George, if we know that we're not in the best negotiating position here, Fofana's got 5 years left on his contract, Leicester are going to want best part of £80 million. Why have we wasted all this time and waited sort of between 10 and 12 days to put a third bid in, which we know is going to be rejected? I don't understand that at all.
No, I mean, I've messaged you yesterday, just frustrated because I don't. I mean, it's naive from my point of view because I don't understand the transfer process really at all. But I don't understand how people come together and they formulate this bid, put all the paperwork together and everything, and then they fax it or send it over by email, whatever they do, to know that it's just going to bounce back. Anyone could have told you that. So why are these people in charge? And it takes so long. I don't understand if personal terms and everything else has been agreed and he wants to join and the wages are right. I don't understand why we're haggling over a couple of million. It's going to be rejected. If we go in a few days' time, we go in for £72 million, whatever, it's going to be rejected. So what is the point? Just pay the money. Obviously, I know Leicester want as much as they can get and Chelsea don't want to pay. They want to get it for the cheapest deal possible. But, like we've said time and time again, at this point, it's silly money anyway. So what are you kidding yourselves? You've got less than 2 weeks to go until don't know how long is to go. How long is there to go to the end of the transfer window?
Well, it shuts on the 1st of September. I think it's about 6-7 days.
Right, so we haven't got time. We haven't got time to mess around here. And by how slow it takes, I mean, if the process is that slow to get another bid in, then we've got to get it right. I mean, the fact that we've done it 3 times is embarrassing anyway. What is positive about this is it does look like, from Roger's comments, I mean, we suspected that he'd be left out at the weekend, which he was. It looks like as if now that he has no future left at Leicester City. They are doing kind of what Arsenal did to Aubameyang, which is kind of shonning him out of the first team, making him train on his own. He's not interested in playing again. So I think this deal will now be done, but we're going around it the long way.
Cutting it fine, isn't it? Yeah, but we are cutting it fine. I mean, obviously now, you can tell by the language there from Rodgers, it's just an agreement between the clubs, and then it will happen. But I don't understand why it's taking so long. Yes, we don't know the ins and outs of transfer dealings, the intricacies with this much money involved. This has a lot of people to deal with, etc. But I mean, yeah, we knew that bid was going to be rejected. So I know we don't want to go beyond a certain point. But when you're spending sort of £70 million anyway, what difference really is an extra 10 mil at the end of the day? Like, when you're spending that much money in the first place, an extra 10 is not really making too much difference in my opinion. But I mean, George, it'd be interesting because obviously we got Leicester on the weekend. It'll be interesting to see if we go back in with another bid before the week's out, and whether Fofana is going to be involved in that game at all. I mean, what were your thoughts tonight? Do you think we'll go back in quickly with another offer?
I think tactically we probably will just before the game, just to ruffle some feathers, which is always a good way to do it. But I know Fofana won't play against Chelsea at the weekend. I'm almost sure of that. Won't be in the squad, and I think it's just a matter of time now to agree the terms rather than him being. I don't think there's even a chance that he's staying at Leicester, even if we can't agree a fee at some point. I think he's going to be a Chelsea player. It's just a question of when.
It's almost an untenable situation. I mean, if he's gone through all he's gone through, like, is there really a way back into the club for him, as it were?
Not with Rodgers in charge, but Rodgers could be gone. I mean, he's struggling. Leicester are
struggling a little bit. I mean, George, obviously, this Fofana thing, we have to wait and see what happens with it. But it's very much now, mate, is that because we've left it so late, we basically have to do this. Otherwise, we're not really going to get another centre-back. And I know there's been potential people commenting in the chat. I've seen the things about Adam Webster at Brighton could be a potential other alternative option. But Chelsea are running out of time. Teams will want enough time to replace their players already. So it's very much we've got to get Fofana done. I mean, George, do you think it's essential that another centre-back does come in? Because for me, I think we desperately need it.
Yeah, I think we need it. Well, we do need it. Yeah, I think so. I can't really contradict my previous statements where I said if it doesn't happen and we don't get one, and it's not the end of the world, which I still stand by, because my priority.
I think it would be a problem, though.
It would be a problem. I think it would be a problem, but it depends what your targets are for the season. I think we still have enough to get top 4 with what we've got. I mean, it'll be a struggle. It'll be hard, but I still believe we can do that. In terms of closing the gap, no chance with not bringing in an extra body or two. So. Listen, this would be another great addition, and it looks like it's going to happen. So, in terms of number 4 coming in terms of a first-team player with added to Kukurea, Koulibaly, and Sterling, yeah. I think that's fantastic for the club, and the list of superlatives for him are brilliant. I mean, he's young, he's versatile. Knows the Premier League. I mean, it ticks every single box for me, this one.
Yeah, it's got a lot of potential. Let's just hope we can get a move on and submit a bid either tomorrow, Friday, get another bid in before the game, and try and get this deal done by the end of this week. Because as I say, we are massively running out of time. And talking of deals that we're running out of time to complete, that takes me on to the pursuit of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Now, this is one that has been going on for a while. And, Chelsea did offer, I think their only offer was £15 million plus Marcus Alonso, but Barca weren't interested in that. They wanted Alonso as a separate deal. Barcelona need to sell because they've got to register Koundé. They still haven't registered Jules Koundé. They need to sell in order to do that. There's still no agreement between Chelsea and Barca for Aubameyang. Talks ongoing, but price tag around €30 million is creating issues, as I said. Chelsea are not open to pay that fee for Aubameyang. There's still works to be done in the next round of talks. So Chelsea have put 15 million plus Marcus Alonso on the table. Aubameyang is obviously the number one striking option, 33 years of age. I understand you might not want to pay 30 million euros for him, but if we're not prepared to sort of almost pay what Barca want. This is a player that joined Barcelona 8 months ago. We're not exactly in the strongest of positions to negotiate here either. Personal terms have been agreed with the player. It's just about kind of agreeing a fee with Barca. I mean, this one's dragging on a little bit as well, George. How frustrating is it that we're seemingly wasting so much time again on another deal?
But is he number one priority? Because this just pisses me off even more.
Well, he is. He's the main attack. He's the main attacking priority. We haven't been linked with anyone else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but we're not prepared to pay 30 million, but prepared to go in for a bid of 60 million for Gordon. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, Chelsea have got no argument either way. If they're saying, we're trying to be clever with our money, well, then you're not, because you're trying to pay 60 million plus add-ons for Gordon, an unproven player, and yet you're not prepared to spend half of that on a player who is established, who has played at the top level, who has played a lot more Premier League games, scored a lot more Premier League goals. All right, age, but Ronaldo shows that age means nothing. Yeah. Thiago Silva shows age means nothing. So why is it any different? I just don't understand how this deal has not... 30 million is, all right, it's not... It's pretty cheap going these days for a player, how many goals he's got, and you know, for what you're getting. I think that's a pretty good deal. I don't know why. I just have no idea why this hasn't been done. I'm baffled, and yet we're still pursuing Gordon. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, this needs to get done. I mean, I think there's still every confidence that this will get done, but each day that goes by with no real updates, obviously, is a bit more of a concern. We desperately need more bodies up the top end of the pitch. We need more quality, more strength and depth in the squad. And, Tuchel really wants this player. This is his guy, Aubameyang. They've worked together before. They've got a good relationship. Tuchel really likes him. And this is very much seen as a stopgap signing before we try and bring someone big in next summer. But again, I don't understand why we're sort of messing about with the fee. I understand we don't want to pay 30 million euros, but what difference is it paying like 22 million euros? I don't really know. I mean, we need him in. And George, do you think? I think I've asked you this before, but do you think this would be a good addition, a welcome addition to the squad? I mean, I'm not saying it solves the issues we've got in attack by any chance, but he certainly goes in and becomes our best goal scorer, 100%.
It's a calculated and educated risk, isn't it? I mean, you look at stats aren't everything, as well proven at Chelsea, but he's played in the Premier League, he's got goals, and the most important addition to that is that he knows the manager, knows the systems, knows the personality in the dressing room, which is it's a huge asset to have. I mean, it's very similar to what, Jose Mourinho and Drogba reuniting when he came back, and, okay, he didn't do as well as he did first time around, but just having that player who's, familiar with the manager will give him that confidence to get going from the off. And I just think, with what we've got at the moment, adding Aubameyang to that can only be a calculated risk. Even if it doesn't pay off, it's worth 30 million euros for me.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think it is. Look, it's as risk free as you can potentially get in football. The wages won't be ridiculous. Yeah. The fee is not ridiculous for someone of his record. So I think it's smart business. I would say, and there's not really a top level striker out there of a younger age profile that we can realistically get in this short amount of time. A stopgap signing is kind of, for me, sort of the perfect solution. We can't go with what we've already got because it's not enough. Plus, obviously, we could still be losing Hakim Ziyech. Callum Hudson-Odoi is going out the door. So we need bodies in there. Brozier could still leave possibly as well. There's a chance there. So we are leaving ourselves light at the top end of the pitch, which is why it's really important that we do get this Aubameyang deal done. But yeah, at the moment, there's not really much more to say other than there's no update. Chelsea have put one offer in, 15 million plus Marcus Alonso. That's been rejected, and I don't think we've gone back with another offer yet. Well, at least it's not been reported anyway. So I mean, it's a bit of a concern, really. That seems to have gone a little bit quiet, but hopefully there'll be some more updates on Aubameyang sort of in the next few days or so. But I mean, George, in terms of the midfield, mate, I just wanted to cover that. Are you surprised that Thomas Tuchel doesn't really seem to think we need to bring in any more bodies in midfield? Because we've got Gallagher, we've got Gallagher, Jorginho, Loftus-Cheek, Kante, Kovacic, and we've got sort of 5 in there. But numbers doesn't mean that it's all right. These guys are all different profiles of midfield player, and with the injury record of Kovacic and Kante, we're constantly looking really short in that position. We've got basically 2 midfield slots with 3 players available, like most of the time. Kante and Kovacic are going to spend large parts of the season injured. I am really surprised that we've not targeted a midfield player this summer.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a position that we haven't really explored for a couple of years now. We've had roughly the same midfield, give or take, low knees coming back for, no real marquee signing in the midfield for some time. And I get it.
Not invested in the midfield for years.
No, and it's a difficult, and maybe that's, from all the talk and obviously the repelled kind of reaction from fans about, bringing players in. I think that you've got to give your hats to the people who recruited those players in, because they've all been quite long lasting and good value for money in the end. The likes of Kovacic, Kante, I mean, they've been there for absolute years and have done a really good job. So credit where it's due there from the kind of recruitment side of Chelsea. But it's a very difficult position to sort out, I think, particularly when you're looking for a particular type of player. I know there was obviously rumours about De Jong. I think United are still
they've pulled out of that now.
I think they've pulled out with the hope that, I think now that they've got a Casemiro, I think that's kind of done and dusted. But there are still rumours circulating around that De Jong's, possibly there's a move in there for him. I don't see it myself, and I think if Chelsea were really interested, we would have probably done something by now. So again, I don't think that's something that we're pursuing. So I think largely it is. I think we're almost 99% sure that that's probably going to be the midfield that we end up having until at least January. But like I've said on the channel before, mate, I know we want to address every single position as we can, but we've done well. I think if we get Fofana in, we've addressed a lot of issues. It will take time for those players to bed in, so you can't expect an instant reaction. But in terms of bringing in, we brought in 3. If you include Fofana in this, we brought in 3 quality defenders, and we brought in an attacking player, and that's really at the moment what we can ask for.
Yeah, I think we've got it's important to realize that we can't address all this in one window. But I do feel that by not addressing the midfield, it's going to bite us in the arse this season, because there's going to be several points where we're going with Jorginho and Gallagher in midfield, or Jorginho and Ruben, because those other 2 guys are injured, and we just don't have the strength in depth or the strength in profiles. There's no one with the same profile as Jorginho, no one with the same profile as Kante, no one got the same profile as Kovacic and stuff like that. So we're very much having to play players out of position in midfield. Gallagher's not a pivot player. He's very much a number 8. Ruben, I think, is better as a number 8, although he can play in that sort of holding midfield role, but it's not ideal. So I just think the lack of depth in midfield is gonna cause us big problems. And this one still pisses me off, that we could have got Tchouaméni last season, but we chose to go for Saul instead. That was one of the big own goals for me on that. Really, really disappointing. What's this? Leicester won't sell us Fofana before we play them. I wouldn't have thought so, because obviously with Koulibaly suspended, why would they sell Fofana before we play them? They give us Fofana to slot him in. I don't think that would happen. But in terms of kind of players moving out, mate. Oh, by the way, guys, not mentioned it today. About 45 minutes in, still almost 60 of us in here. Please do smash the likes, guys. Nowhere near enough likes for the amount of people tuning in. So literally takes you seconds. Really helps me out. Doesn't cost you any money. Just hover over that thumb button and smash that like. We'd really appreciate it. Helps spread the stream to more people, helps with the YouTube algorithm. So please do keep smashing those likes, get those likes up. And most importantly, guys, please do subscribe to the channel as well. If you're tuning in now, you're not subscribed, please do help us out by clicking that subscribe button. We would really appreciate it. So please do that. George, in terms of outgoings, and obviously incomings are important, but outgoings equally important as well. Emerson completed his move to West Ham yesterday, £13 million plus £2 million add-ons. I know we touched on it a few streams back, but good deal all round for all parties concerned.
Yeah, happy with that. I was confident that they would go in again and it would be resolved. And good for him. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Emerson. It's a shame we haven't really seen a lot of him. I think there's potentially a very good player in there, actually. So I'll be looking forward to seeing him in a West Ham shirt, but definitely best for all parties. I mean, he was surplus to requirements in a position that we've been blessed with so many great left backs over the years.
Yeah, he just doesn't really. I don't want to say he wasn't Chelsea quality, but yeah, I just don't think he was quite up to it. If we're being totally honest.
I know, but it's a bit like Zabacosta. There's a decent player in there. I really do believe that. It's just I think we've been so blessed with defensive players at Chelsea that you have to be a real big like you said, you have to be a certain quality to get through the door. And I mean, when you're not even getting cup games, it's when Lewis, I think it was Lewis Hall who started a few of the FA Cup matches last season. I know he's out on loan, but
didn't start many, did he?
No, so it's. I think it's best for all parties. I think it's a good signing for West Ham.
Yeah, I would agree, man. Just a bit of an update on the future of Hakim Ziyech as well. Ajax and Chelsea have held a new round of have got a new round of talks scheduled to discuss the Hakim Ziyech deal. He's considered a priority target for Ajax. Ajax obviously waiting for a new bid from Antony. I mean, George, Ziyech is clearly surplus to requirements. He's probably going to be going back to Ajax, it would seem. I think Man United will eventually get Antony for ridiculous money, but I think they will. Ziyech back to Ajax makes sense. It just hasn't really worked out for him at all at Chelsea, has it? As another big money signing that just hasn't happened. I mean, imagine, I said to you that we signed Ziyech, Werner and Lukaku for about 200, 300 million pounds. And within a couple of years, they've all been sent back to the clubs they came from for a huge loss. It kind of just sums Chelsea up. But Ziyech back to Ajax, probably best outcome for all parties.
Yeah, I've got to say, from all the things that I get wrong, and I do get a lot of stuff wrong, I was never convinced on Hakim Ziyech. And I knew
balling at Ajax, though. He did look class. I thought he'd be decent. I've got to be honest, mate. This is one of the signs that I thought, oh fuck, he'd be pretty good at Chelsea.
No, I wasn't convinced at all. I think it was a impulse buy from one great night at Stamford Bridge. I know they'd been looking at him for a while in that campaign when Ajax did really well in the Champions League. But it was a bit of a one-season wonder. And as soon as he came, you could just tell physically some players just can't deal with the Premier League, and he is 100% one of them. He's too.
Yeah.
He's
a great technician, though, wasn't he?
I don't disagree. And I've said it on the channel that in terms of a left foot and in terms of his ability, he's one of the most talented footballers we had in that forward line. There's no doubt about that. But there's talent. They're all talented, but then there's actually application and dealing with the physical demands of the Premier League. And he's just too light. He's too. I mean, when it's windy, he gets blown over. He's just not a Premier League player. He needs a league where there's lots of space and it's a bit of a basketball game end to end, and he's got time to do his little dribbles and all the rest of it. He just didn't suit the Premier League. And Chelsea, as much as we like to say, we are the worst with transfers in terms of the amount of money we pay.
Isn't it? That's the problem.
I mean, it's a curse. It's a graveyard. I mean, it's awful. I mean, like you said, they're over £200 million spent, and we've given them back to all their original clubs for less than 50% of what we bought them for. It's terrible business.
It is terrible business. And if Ajax are going to get sort of 90 to 100 million euros for Antony, then they definitely don't give him on loan. Let's just sell him, because Ajax will have money to bring him. But it's just not worked out, and it is a real shame. But George, with obviously we've lost Lukaku, we've lost Werner. It looks like we were going to lose Callum Hudson-Odoi, and we're going to lose Hakim Ziyech as well, seemingly. Just Aubameyang coming in, that leaves us pretty light, doesn't it? I mean, obviously Gordon could come in. Do you think, obviously, with those kind of four going out in Lukaku, Werner, Ziyech, and Callum Hudson-Odoi, is replacing them with Gordon and Aubameyang, is that enough? That's 4 out, 2 in. I still think we could be a bit light up there.
It's not enough, and it probably does leave us light. But then I think we were almost forced to in those positions with a few of those players who, again, if the players don't want to be at the club, it doesn't matter about numbers. I think it's what service are they doing them the club anymore if they don't want to play? So you have to get them off the books, and Chelsea are going to have to go backwards to go forwards. And if that means having a massive clear out and leaving ourselves a little bit light, but then a new set of eyes and bringing in players that hopefully can turn this around, and we get the players in that we want, and we try and get it right, then we have to take the hit. And if it means 4 players going, ideally you want to keep numbers, but Werner clearly wasn't wanted by Tuchel. Ziyech made it very public after jetting off to Ajax literally straight after, or to Holland straight after. He clearly wants to go. Lukaku made it very obvious he wanted to go. So no player's bigger than the club at the end of the day, and I think Chelsea have to, maybe be a bit light this season and struggle to get that fourth position in order to transitionise the squad, and that's just the way it's going to have to be.
Yeah, no, mate, I think that's fair. I think we're probably going to have to slightly readjust our expectations. I think we're so used to thinking, we're challenging for the title, winning trophies and stuff. And I think the reality of the situation is that I think we were blindsided by this as well. I remember at the start of last season, we were going in saying, this is one of the best Chelsea squads we've ever seen. And I think it's evident that it just isn't. I can't remember when I said it, but I think the Champions League win, as fantastic as it was, and it was great, in the long term, it's actually going to do more. It's do more good, do more harm than it will good, because I think it massively warped people's perceptions of how good this squad is, because it's not as good as people thought it was. And I think the Champions League win kind of masked over about how poor the squad was, how unbalanced it was, and how much work they actually needed doing to it. I mean, it was a remarkable feat that we actually got that Champions League win out of that squad. And I think we got so much out of players that we just weren't expecting to get from them. And now that kind of the normal levels returned, it was very evident that a lot of these players weren't really good enough for Chelsea, and the squad is massively misbalanced. I mean, do you think that's a fair thing to say, mate? Champions League winners perhaps really skewed people's perceptions, and the squad actually isn't as good as many people thought it was.
Well, yeah, we're only human, aren't we? And when we won, the biggest trophy going in club football, you're going to be on a bit of a bandwagon where you think you're just indestructible. We knew we weren't the best team in Europe, but I think the way we were playing and defending and all working together, I think even some of the players that perhaps you thought weren't good enough, Chelsea, were raising their levels. But obviously it was very early Tuchel days, and you'd expect that kind of reaction, that bounce. And I think now that's faded, and we're starting to see potholes in the style and the way that we've struggled for goals, and the whole upset and uproar about Lukaku and how that situation was dealt. I think it's tarnished a bit of what we're trying to achieve. But if you actually look at the records, Chelsea in terms of a title challenge and putting 38 games together has been pretty much non-existent since we last won it back in 2017.
We haven't been close to challenging whatsoever.
No, and in that time we finished before Conte came in, I think we finished 10th one season when Mourinho left, and we managed to recover. We've finished just about scrambled top 4 on the last day of the season. So it's not been pretty reading in terms of a league point of view, but we're in almost a similar position to Liverpool at the moment, where we reached an extreme height as they did of winning the Champions League. And perhaps the first 11 is very good, but actually, if you scratch the surface and you look around the squad, it's not required, and it's not good enough to sustain, a title challenge of any sort. And actually, similar to Liverpool, we're in transition.
I mean, we talk about consistency, mate. We discussed it on Monday when we were going through the Leeds game. There's no consistency in this team. And as I said, look at the 3 performances we've had this season.
3 different results.
Not only 3 different results, but 3 completely different levels of performance from the same players. I'm not saying you're going to play well every week, but to have that much of a contrast from week to week, we had a week to work on this game against. What went wrong? The same players that played so well against Tottenham were then collectively so shit against Leeds. I don't know how you get more consistency. I don't know how it happens. Let me just bring this up. I'm somewhat disagree. I'm not sure what that's disagreeing with, but I think we all knew we weren't good enough yet. We expected players to grow. No growth.
Yeah,
no, I get
the
that.
potential. It was the potential that we thought.
I think you get sucked in by the potential. I mean, George, just on the attack very briefly, how concerned are you, mate, that 3 games in and there's been no goals from any of the attackers? No, Mount, Havertz and Sterling have started all 3 games, and they've contributed 0 goals between them, of the grand total of 1 assist.
It's concerning, but am I surprised?
Not at all. That's the worst thing, though. The fact that we're not surprised by it is the worst thing about this.
Well, we thought the system, and when we brought in Lukaku, I think most Chelsea fans believe that he was the missing piece of the puzzle, and that the way we play, the wing backs and putting balls into the box. We still don't know if that was a big, miss because of the injured fullbacks that we had, and whether that tarnished it. It probably did, but it's if, buts, and maybes. But this has been a problem for years. This is not a problem. This is not a Tuchel problem. I mean, people say that it's the system. Yes, I think the system, the way we defensively set up, does definitely limits the amount of chances.
But we played a 4 in the second half when we were shit, and we played a 4 at times last season.
Yeah.
And other than when we play Spurs, it's shit.
But we've never been. You even go back. You can go way back. Conte. I mean, we did play some outstanding football.
You cannot say we played. Look, we played under Jose first 2 years. We played phenomenal football. People said we were boring. We played some electric football. We got a record amount of points in that first season. Yet people still said we were boring. Like, I know we're not renowned.
We didn't score a lot of goals.
I know we're not. I know we're not renowned for playing like expansive football, but we can play decent football. But we just don't. Obviously, and as we've said many times before, mate, I'll happily win 1-0 every week playing shit football if it means we win the league, of course. But there should be more coming from these players, and we've discussed this before, mate. But there comes a point where whose fault is it? It's not just all the players, because the manager's got to get more out of the players. He's got to give them the confidence that that they can go out there and perform. And the reality of the situation is, for as much as we all love Tuchel, and we absolutely do, he's not improving what he's got enough. Well, certainly forward-wise. Defensively, there's no arguments. I think that he improves players and he's improved the defenders. But in terms of the attackers, no attackers have developed their game at all since he's been here. I mean, that's got to be a big concern. I know you can talk about system. I know he can't score the chances for these players, but ultimately, surely he's got to take some responsibility as well for the misfiring in the attack.
Oh, and he does. I mean, I listened to an interview that he did on the Sunday Supplement with Vicky Gomersall, and he made it very obvious that he was really, really saddened by the fact that the Lukaku outcome and he didn't make it work. And he really did feel like it was his responsibility that he didn't get the best out of Lukaku. And so, but then that's why I'm more surprised. I thought that would really ignite him to be like, look, go into this season with a completely different outlook on how he's going to get the best out of the attackers. But it seems like we're still playing the same style of football, even with the new personnel we've brought in, which it's a conflicting.
Nothing seems to have changed, does it? That's my big issue, is that, like, from last, I know we're only 3 games in, of course, and it's very early days, but it's the fact that nothing's changed from the problems we had last season. I'm not saying the problems are going to disappear in 3 games. They're not, but it doesn't even, there's not even any signs of progress, is there? Like, you don't look at it and think, oh, you know what? You can see we're making improvements there. You can see what we're trying to do.
But then this isn't even from a, you don't even need to be a professional to know this. I think as a person who enjoys playing and watching football, I still believe that, at the end of the day, a manager's influence, I think people overhype it and think that there's such a massive impact. At the end of the day, when that whistle goes, of course, players are thinking about tactics, but ultimately it is down to them to put the fucking ball in the net.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no,
they get enough, and you only have to look at some of the embarrassing highlight reels of the chances that we missed, and Tuchel must be thinking, you can't. What can you do? You can't improve that. You've just got to finish it. I mean, even when you play football at an amateur level, if you get a chance and you miss it, that's nothing to do with tactics. That's to do with you not being able to put the ball in the net. I mean, all the hype on, look at that Rashford finish the other night, 1-on-1. I mean,
I wouldn't trust any of our players to score that.
No, but that's the thing. That's a problem that Tuchel's got. Yes, there's definitely a confidence issue, transferring from the coach to the players, because I honestly don't believe he does trust them other than maybe Sterling at this point.
No.
But still, it's still that, they're professional footballers. It's still their job to put the ball in the net, and it's down to them at the end of the day. Tuchel can't go out there and kick it in the net. So I think the players do have to take responsibility for letting him down, because we are creating the chances. We are creating. We do create. Yeah,
look, we're not. So
therefore, the coaching is working.
We're not the most creative side by all means, but we do create opportunities. The stats suggest that we do create chances. The problem is that we don't create enough chances, and this is now why, for me, this is why Sterling is going to come under criticism at Chelsea, and he will do. I'm not criticising him right now, or saying people are, but he will come in for criticism, because we don't like his misses at Manchester City. We know Sterling, every player's got misses in them, but Sterling does miss a lot of chances. But because he was getting, it didn't for Sterling, if he missed 2 or 3 chances in a game, it didn't matter, because he would get 4, 5 or 6, and he would put 1 or 2 of those away. Problem is now is that at Chelsea, Sterling might get 1 or 2 chances, and if he doesn't put them away, it's highlighted, and then we don't create those additional chances that City do, which then causes a massive problem. So Sterling, again, is going to be another player that's going to fall foul of criticism because we don't create enough chances for him. He's not one of those players that's going to get one chance and score. He's very much going to be a player that probably misses 2 or 3 chances in a game. But if you give him 5 or 6 chances, he'll score 1 or 2 goals. But because we don't create 5 or 6 chances in a game, it's going to look like Sterling is struggling. And I think, to be honest with you, I think Sterling is struggling a little bit at the moment. He's not had any shots on target in the 3 games that we've had. And for me, mate, I'm concerned that he's always playing down the middle. We discussed this in the window when we were linked with him. We were very happy for Sterling to come over Jesus on the premise that he was going to play down the right flank or down the left side. Sterling started in a front 2 or through the middle in every game. I mean, George, are you concerned by that? Because I think he should be starting. He should be starting wide. He should be starting on the wing because that's where he plays his best football.
Yeah, I agree. Cutting inside, drawing players in, drawing the centre back over, so there's more space for the forward line. But maybe Tuchel thinks because the actual so-called number 9 is so bad, we have to change it, and he can bring the others into play by playing that central role. I think he does get a bit lost there. But you're right, mate. I mean, you switch it. You take exactly. We've used this example before. You look at Erling Haaland. He scores a couple of goals against Newcastle, but look how many chances he missed from the creation of play that he got. He got so many chances in that game. So he's always going to get a handful of goals, as did Sterling. I mean, they'd win 4-5, 6-0. He would get a couple, and hunky-dory, everything's great. But at Chelsea, the Leeds game, he got 1 great chance at the very start, and that was it. And if you don't take that at Chelsea, the chances are limited. But we've just got to lower the expectation. People are coming in saying, Sterling is a great signing. I still believe that. And
I do as well.
Right, it's still the right decision, even if it doesn't end up going well. I still think you can't say no to someone like Raheem Sterling in terms of adding to our, Arsenal up front. But for people to say, "Oh, we bought Sterling, the City Sterling, and he's going to be the City Sterling," he's not going to be the City Sterling. He's not going to be. He'll probably be lucky to get. I hope he gets double digits in terms of assists, but in goals, you're looking at.
I'd be surprised if he got. I'd be surprised if I know this could be completely wrong. I was going to say, mate, if he gets more than 10 Premier League goals, I'd be surprised, mate. When was the last time a Chelsea player scored over 10 Premier League goals? I mean,
it's bad, isn't it? It's bad.
But when you talk about that, 10, that's a bare minimum.
In a 38-game season, yeah, it's pretty bad.
And you can't get. I know you're not. I know you might not play every game. You might not be fit for every game. You might be out injured and stuff. But if you play the majority of the Premier League matches, say you play at least 30 games, that's like 10 goals is like 1 goal in 1 in 3. If you're a top forward player and you cannot get 1 in 3, fuck it. That's.
But then you brought up the stat the other day, mate, that we tend to create on average just over 1 decent attempt per game. So what are we, how there aren't many chances. I mean, you could flip it the other way and say, actually, a lot of players do contribute to the goals, but it's not healthy that most of those are playing at the back. And they come from either, the wing backs or from a set piece. I mean, nothing really free flowing or from, the penalty spot. It's pretty poor.
It is poor.
And it's not going to change anytime soon, I don't think, until something we either get a massive clear out and we start again, or there's some radical change in formation where suddenly it clicks with the players that we've got. But
I don't think changing, like people say, I'll go to a 4 at the back. Well, all right, go to a 4 at the back. We haven't got a world-class holding midfield player that you need to play 4 at the back. And ultimately, are we actually going to create any more chances playing 4 at the back? Because it limits the fullbacks, it will limit Reece James and Chilwell or Cucurella. Yes, you can still get forward, but nowhere near as well as you can from wing back. Is Kovacic a creative player? Not really. He's a very good midfield player, very progressive. He doesn't put up big numbers for assists. Mount, for the amount of assists he hasn't got very many. I don't know the exact amount of assists from open play, but it's not a big number from open play. Yes, he gets assists from set pieces and stuff, but Mount, who people say is kind of like, our creative outlet, his assists from open play are minimal. And that's a concern. And look, Guyan saying we're being doomsday. I'm not being doomsday. I'm just being honest. I love Chelsea, but I'm not going to sit here and say we're fucking unbelievable, because the reality of the situation is we're not right now. There are problems, and I have to talk honestly about the issues at the club at the moment. And that's exactly what we've got, the same issues reoccurring. And these guys aren't bad football players, but at the same time, it's these guys need to step up and perform. That's on them. That's on the manager as well. But I mean, I don't really know what else to say. But yeah, I think that sounds like a good point to round out. Guys, there's still over 60 of you in here. Let me just quickly get this here. Keep in consideration how well we did to stay in the top 4 last season, considering all that was going on. Yeah, like
you guys are mad. Well, look, it is. Look, we are Chelsea. We are being a bit doom and gloom, but
I don't think it is. I just think it's realistic.
We've said on the channel we need to lower our expectations. I think all Chelsea fans do. But we're so used to being successful and winning whatever, a trophy season and winning the big ones and being associated as one of the most successful clubs of the decade. But there comes a time for every club where they go through a moment of transition, and for us that is now. So we're going to lose a few games, more than a few. We're going to be up and down. We're going to lose games that we shouldn't have lost. We're going to draw games at home that we shouldn't draw, like we did last season. And we might even win a few games that we shouldn't win either. But it's because we just demand, as Tuchel does, we demand success. And that's why we're a bit doom and gloom, because I think everyone can see the problems, but we haven't sorted them. And it's obvious, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course it is. What's this?
If we beat Leeds, we could be a bit more fucking positive, couldn't we?
Well, there's not a lot to be positive about at the moment. That's the thing. Yeah. There's not much to be positive about. Like I'm always positive about Chelsea as much as I can be, but when there's not things to be positive about, we have to be critical. And there are big problems at the club at the moment. Let me just get to these last things in the chat, and then we'll wrap it up. Would have much preferred to get Skriniar, Webster, or even Joachim Anderson than deal with Leicester. I mean, Anderson's a good defender. Webster, I think, has done well at Brighton again. I'm not sure. Skriniar. Yeah, I think Skriniar is too much money, really, like for what he is. I'd rather spend a bit more on Fofana, to be perfectly honest. I mean, yes, I'd like to think that TT will be at Chelsea long term if he gets contract extension until 2026. I think that makes sense. But at the same time, we know that no contracts really mean fuck all in football. Fofana signed a 5-year deal a few months ago. He wants to fuck off now. Like, contracts don't mean anything. Yes, it gives you a bit of security, but at the end of the day, like, you can be disposed of very quickly, regardless of how much contract you've got. So I don't think that's. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's not the be all and end all. But I do agree. I mean, I can't remember who I spoke to about this, but the hiring and firing policy we had under Roman Abramovich is not sustainable. You cannot keep going like that because you just run out of managers to go through, and it's not sustainable. Particularly you end up with a pick and mix of squads. And it takes ages to clear out. And we're seeing that right now. So I think, yes, look, I don't think Bowley will be afraid to sack Tuchel if things like drastically went wrong. But I think it's very much the intention is to give the manager the time that he needs to mould his squad. So, yeah, I think Tuchel will be here for the long term. He'll be here for as long as he wants to be here, I feel, unless things don't improve. I mean, look, it's not been the best start to the season, but I hope that he's here for at least the next 2 or 3 seasons. But at the end of the day, it is so hard to tell. Yeah, Lee, imagine not being Chelsea. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want it any other way. I couldn't support anyone else.
That's a positive thing.
Yeah, you lot are so sport. I remember you lot are so sport. I remember losing 5-2 at home to Wimbledon and losing to Scarborough. That would have been before our time.
We
Chelsea
are very
fans
spoiled.
We are spoiled.
In our generation, we are.
Yeah, our generation, we are spoiled for sure. What do you think of our league performances of the last 10 to 15? Jesus Christ, last 10 to 15 games. Not great, to be perfectly honest. Just scraping top 4, just drawing games. Not great. No, not great. But it is what it is. What's this? I need Chelsea to sign Godong. I think you mean Gordon there. But I mean, if Gordon comes, it's fine.
Never know. I think that's what Bowley probably thought his name was until he signed
Godong. Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the Gordon thing. Look, despite what my feelings on it, despite my not feeling we need him, it's a colossal amount of money. If he does come in, which it looks like he will, I will fully back him, like I do every Chelsea player. I want him to do as well as he possibly can.
But do you want that move? Do you want that move to happen?
No, not really. But
no, I don't.
I don't. But it doesn't mean that I won't. That I don't fully support the player when he comes. No, I definitely don't want. I definitely don't want Chelsea to sign Gordon. No, but at the end of the day, like Tuchel wants him, we're going to bring it in. We need to trust his judgment. And the most important thing to remember on all these signings, on the signings of Aubameyang when it happens, of Gordon and stuff. These are on Tuchel now. Like, there's only one. If these don't work out, there's only one man that's responsible for it, and that's the manager. So it's great to give the responsibility to the gaffer, to give him almost free reign on transfers. But with that comes massive, massive pressure, because you've been back with the money to bring in the players that you want. If you can't get the players to work, that's on you. You live by the sword and you die by the sword. So if these guys come in, Gordon, Aubameyang, etc., and don't work out, then that's only on one person, and that's on the gaffer. And it's as simple as that. And I think that's seems like a good point to round out. We could go on for ages, but we've been going for a while now. Guys, still over 60 of you in here, so really appreciate all of you tuning in this afternoon. Great fun interacting with you in the chat as always. Please, guys, on your way out, make sure you smash those likes, get those likes up, people. There's nowhere near enough likes for the amount of people that have tuned in this afternoon. So get those likes up, hit that thumb button. We'd really appreciate it. And more importantly, guys, please do subscribe to the channel on your way out. It would really appreciate all the support. Welcome you to the community. So please do subscribe to the channel, guys. We're heading towards 1.5K now. Hopefully get to 2K pretty sharpish. So yeah, if you could subscribe to the channel, you haven't done so already, then that would be fantastic. George, thanks for your time as always, mate. Wouldn't it? Yeah, that would be a positive. Yeah, guys, please do subscribe to the channel. Would really appreciate it. It's great interacting with you. So yeah, to welcome you to the community as well with the channel, that would be fantastic. But yeah, guys, until then, I mean, hopefully Chelsea get a move on in the transfer market, get a few deals over the line. Hopefully, maybe we can agree a couple of deals before the Leicester game on the weekend, if not next week. We may well be back tomorrow, actually, because there's a Champions League draw for the group stage tomorrow. So we may well be back tomorrow afternoon/evening with a bit of a reaction to that. I'll check what time it's on and stuff, and we'll probably bring you some reaction to that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Busy week. Champions League reaction tomorrow. Leicester preview Friday. So yeah, guys, stay tuned for a busy end of the week on the channel. But as always, please smash the likes on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. George, thanks for your time, mate. And as always, guys, take care and up the Chelsea.